Hi, my name is Nicole Tugas, and today I'll be speaking along with Christina on the affirmative side, advocating for the policy the U.S. should replace the Electoral College with direct popular vote for president. The Electoral College is a select body of electors proportional to the population of every state, with a total of 538 electors requiring 270 votes to win. The Electoral College system has 4 major flaws, and for this reason should be changed. These flaws are: Number 1, the possibility of electing a minority president, such as the case with President Bush. Number 2, the risk of so-called faithless electors. Number 3, the role of the Electoral College in depressing voter turnout. And number 4, its failure to accurately reflect the national popular will. The problem with the possibility of electing a minority president is that there is always a chance of the candidate actually losing the nationwide popular vote of being elected president by the electoral vote. Can it happen? And yes, it has 3 times. In 1876, Republican Rutherford B. Hayes versus Democrat Samuel J. Tilden, Hayes was elected president. In 1888, Republican Benjamin Harrison versus Democrat Grover Cleveland, Harrison was elected. In 2000, as we all know, Republican George W. Bush versus Al Gore, Bush was elected. Another way of electing a minority president is if a third-party candidate, however small, drew enough votes from the top that no one received over 50% of the national popular total. Far from being unusual, this sort of thing has in fact happened 15 times, including in this century. Wilson and Polk in 1912 and 1916, Truman in 1948, Kennedy in 1960, and Nixon in 1968. It is actually possible to receive much, and I emphasize much less than 50% of the popular vote, as long as your support is spread out enough over the 51% of the 270 electoral votes. A third party can also lead to the 3 or more presidential candidates splitting the electoral votes as much that no one obtains the necessary majority. Should that happen today, there are 2 possible resolutions that have been stated. Either one candidate could throw his electoral votes to the support of another before the meeting of electors, or else an absent absolute majority in the Electoral College, the U.S. House of Representatives, would select a president in accordance with the 12th Amendment. Either way, though, the person taking office would not have obtained the absolute majority of the popular vote, and the people would be cheated out of their votes, as the votes would be thrown away or changed without their consent. A look at the electoral votes in each state and a little math will tell you that the Electoral College system makes it, as stated before, possible for a candidate to lose the national popular vote but be elected president by the Electoral College. In fact, it is possible for a candidate not to get a single person's vote, not one, in 39 states. In fact, in 39 states or the District of Columbia, yet be elected president by winning the popular vote in just 11 of these 12 states. And these states are California, New York, Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia. A reason the popular vote is so important is because losing it causes controversy. People begin to feel that the Electoral College winner is undeserving of the title. There's another problem that I mentioned before, faithless electors, that must be addressed. Faithless electors are members of the Electoral College who, for whatever reason, do not vote for their party's designated candidate. When this act is committed, people's votes are basically being changed without their consent. This is wrong, as it is a direct violation of a person's freedoms. The role of the Electoral College in depressing voter turnout was also an issue stated. Since each state is entitled to the same number of votes regardless of its voter turnout, there is no incentive in the states to encourage voter participation. Indeed, there may be even an incentive to discourage participation so as to enable a minority of citizens to decide the electoral vote for the whole state. The Electoral College's failure to accurately reflect the national popular will was the final major problem. First, the distribution of electoral votes in the college tends to overrepresent people in rural states. This is because the number of electors for each state is determined by the number of members it has in the House, which more or less reflects the state's population, plus the number of members it has in the Senate, which is always 2. The result is that in 1988, for example, the combined voting age of population, which is around 3 million, of the 7 least populous jurisdictions of Alaska, Delaware, the District of Columbia, North Dakota, South Dakota, Vermont, and Wyoming, carried the same voting strength in the Electoral College, which was 21 votes, as the 9 million people in the state of Florida. Each Floridian's potential vote then carried about 1/3 the weight of the potential vote of the states listed. So basically, in a summarized simple terms, those 3 million people have a way more weight of vote than the 9 million people in Florida. A second way in which the Electoral College fails to accurately reflect the national popular will stems primarily from the winner-take-all mechanism, whereby the presidential candidate who wins the most popular votes in the state wins all the electoral votes of the state. One effect of this mechanism makes it extremely difficult for the third party or independent candidates ever to make much of a showing in the Electoral College. If, for example, a third party or independent candidate were to win the support of even as many as 25% of the voters nationwide, he might still end up with no Electoral College votes at all unless he won a plurality of votes in at least one state. And even if he managed to win a few states, his support elsewhere would not be reflected. By thus failing to accurately represent the national popular will, the argument goes that the Electoral College reinforces a two-party system, discourages third-party or independent candidates, and thereby tends to restrict the choices available to the electorate. Thus, the national popular will is not represented because a third party could have no electoral votes, but in reality be supported by a good percent of the population. Also, another important Electoral College fact is that a lot of people focus on large swing states. The winner-take-all system causes candidates to do more campaigning in states who have more electoral votes. This is unfair, as Americans are not all treated equally, a value that has been instilled as far back as the equal rights movement. Another discouraging fact about the Electoral College is the paradoxical effect of the House of Representatives. This basically means that the House of Representatives would lessen the advantage of smaller states if they were enlarged in the presidential elections, and the same would occur vice versa. While downsizing it would strengthen the smaller states' advantage, if you change the House of Representatives seats from 435 to, say in the case of George W. Bush and Al Gore, had the House of Representatives been changed to 491, Bush would have still won, while Al Gore, if you changed it to 598, would have won. The situation between Bush and Gore easily shows that this metaphorical scale can easily be tipped. So in conclusion, in today's society, we believe in a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. If the people's votes are being undermined, the Electoral College should be changed to direct popular vote to allow every American to have a voice.